Okay, cool. 7 o'clock, we're gonna start on time. Good evening, everybody. I'm Eric Berkey. I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Site Plan Review Committee. I'm joined here by my co-chair, Commissioner Paula Amadeo with the Planning Commission. So I'm gonna go through a few remarks, as you all know by now, and then we will get going here. So again, welcome to tonight's November 13th, 2025 Site Plan Review Committee subgroup meeting for the Leckey Gardens project. We will be holding a public meeting, hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia per the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7, 2022. Members of the SPRC subgroup for the Leckey Gardens project are participating both here in person and through electronic means. So a few reminders about our hybrid environment. Members of the public may attend here in person, which you have, and thank you for coming. But you folks also may be attending online using the link from the project webpage and other sources, and there's a dial-in phone option. For folks who are joining virtually, if you lose internet connectivity during tonight's meeting, please reconnect by phone. Really important, we say this every meeting, but I will remind you, please keep those phones and devices muted until you're called upon, and please turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. If you're using Microsoft Teams to join us tonight, please turn off that video feed, and we'll talk about that in a second. The meeting chat is for two purposes. It's for SPRC members who need technical assistance, and for members of the public who'd like to add their names to the list for public comment, which is taken at the end of the meeting. When I chair SPRCs, always want to make sure that we have time for public comment at the end. So throughout the meeting, I'll kind of we'll do a time check with Commissioner Amadeo, but we want to have folks who came here tonight to testify to have time at the end of the meeting. Teams chat won't be used for discussion. If you'd like to provide public comment, you need to do so at the end of the meeting because it needs to be recorded. That's how we're getting this all kind of in the minutes and for posterity. If you are participating virtually as an SPRC member and you'd like to be recognized to speak on an item, please turn on your video feed and raise your virtual hand. We will do as good a job as we can to monitor the video feed. If you're participating by phone today and you're an SPRC group member, I'll ask you in a moment to please announce your name and group that you're representing, and then we'll from time to time make sure we're checking in to make sure those folks are recognized as well. So those who are here to speak on for public comment, if you're not an SPRC group member, again, thank you so much for coming tonight, either in person or virtually. So we're just going to see how much time we can allow at the end of the meeting. I like to allow for a decent amount of time for public comment, but you never know how these meetings go. Might have a lot to talk about, might have a lot of questions. But we will certainly accommodate, and I always aim to end on time. It's really important as well. So again, enter your name in the meeting chat if you're attending virtually. And then lastly, just a reminder, if this is a public forum, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the county's website, and all information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. Okay, cool. So again, my name is Eric Berkey, and I'm co-chairing this SPRC. So what we're going to do is I want to let folks have the opportunity to introduce themselves. We'll do that. A couple I don't say ground rules, but a couple things before we get started, and then we're going to turn to the presentations. Okay. So I have introduced myself. Why don't we go around the table like this, and then we'll hit the members online, and then everybody else is attending. So if you want to go ahead.
Paula Amadeo, Planning Commission.
Zach Blames with Venable.
Jan McCormick with Davies Carter Scott. Charles Simmons with True Ground Housing.
I'm Jim Montelme, I'm a member of the Planning Commission. I also want to note that I'm president of the Langston Boulevard Alliance. My opinions and comments tonight are as Planning Commissioner and are not necessarily those of the Langston Boulevard Alliance.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tenley Peterson on the Planning Commission.
Katie Thompson, Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission, represented this SPRC.
Benson, I'm with Forestry and Natural Resources Commission.
Sandy Chesron, President, Waverly Hills Civic Association.
Joe Ventron, representing the Housing Commission.
Woodrow, Principal Planner for Department of Environmental Services for the county.
I'm Emma Martin with Planning, just here to help. Chrissy Wallenfish with Planning Commission.
All right, then we'll go around like,
There's also people online.
and I'll get to that in a second. Yeah. So we'll go to members of the public or the applicant team.
Bernie Pagan with True Ground Housing Partners.
Mike Chiappa with True Ground.
Sasha Van Zyk, with Groves Lake.
John Lewis, Bowman Consulting.
Jennifer Thorpe, I'm a resident of Waverly Hills.
So back here.
John Slanta, Waverly Hills.
Ralph Johnson for Waverly Hill.
Line for low number of the public.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Slanta, and I am, live in Waverly Hills, and I live directly across from the Leckey Gardens.
I'm Jen Hazen. I'm with the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission.
Jane Rade, also a neighbor, and I also live directly across from the property. Ginger Brown, the Langston Boulevard Alliance.
I'm Jim Todd. I'm president of the Cherry Dale Citizens Association, Cherry Dale's adjacent to Waverly Hills, and we make heavy use of Lehigh shops in the whole area.
Great. All right, we're gonna go online. So let's hit up the SPRC members online. So.
Okay, so some presenters, so starting with you, thanks.
I don't think he's
Oh,
not,
he's not, okay.
but starting with
Andrew.
Andrew.
Andrew,
Andrew Ferreira, Tenant Landlord Commission.
Eric Goodman,
Eric Goodman with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Jonathan Schuler. All right, we'll go ahead to Karen.
Hi,
Gavada.
I'm Jonathan Schuler.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Schuler. I'm the president of the Vermont Gardens Condominiums Homeowners
Thank you. Karen, Commissioner Gavada.
Association.
Karen Guevara, Planning Commission.
Sergio Vera. Oh, I'm sorry, Sergio, you're right there. Sorry. William Way.
Hi, William Way, Park and Recreation Commission.
Okay. Let's see. So that's Prison, Brian. There's David, no last name.
David Warren, I'm a resident of Waverly Hills.
Thank you. David Judd.
David Judd, Studio 39. We are the landscape architects for the project.
Great. Deborah.
Deborah Ackbreath, resident of Lorckham House Condominiums.
Demond.
Demond Morris, True Ground Housing Partners.
Thanks. Duke Banks.
Duke Banks, resident of Waverly Hills.
Jean.
Jean Hensroth, I'm president of Leeway Overley Civic Association, and I'm involved with Langston Boulevard Alliance.
Karen Surface.
Karen Surface with the Housing Commission.
Kathleen F.
Kathleen Freeman, and that's I'm a resident of Waverly Hills.
Thank you. Keith McCartney.
Keith McCartney, resident of Waverly Hills.
Kendall.
Yes, Kendall Blanding with Bowman Consulting.
Thank you. Lee Clark.
Lee Clark, South Arlington resident.
And Wayel.
Wayel Fahmy with Davis Carter Scott.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online I didn't catch?
One person just joined via phone.
Who? Well, they have to be admitted, right? Who just joined by phone? 602-740-5529. Can you please identify your name and if you've got an organization or affiliation? Okay, well, I'm going to move on. All right. Okay. So we want to move forward here. So just a couple things before we get to the presentations. A couple things I like to add here. These SPRCs usually go pretty well. Folks are pretty respectful, but just a reminder, we want to be mindful of everybody else's time because we want everybody to have an opportunity to weigh in or ask questions. So definitely okay, if not encouraged to, if you agree with the point, associate with somebody else. I associate with Commissioner Amadeo or Commissioner Berkey or whomever. That's totally okay, and actually encourage it. Obviously, we're going to treat each other with respect. Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we're going to disagree, but we can do so in an agreeable manner, right? We're here to kind of suss out some issues we're gonna work to make sure we conclude the meeting on time. So that's basically it. So we're gonna start with I guess the staff presentation, right?
Yes.
And then we will be followed by the applicant presentation, and then we will go through our topics tonight, which will be land use and density. So that's one topic, building height, form and architecture. And then our third topic will be transportation, but we're really going to focus on parking and loading. And then we will do more transportation at the second meeting where we'll have some updates, and then we'll go through some other topics like community benefits, that sort of thing, right? So I will give it to Chrissy to take it away with the staff presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully this should be a refresher because everyone participated in the online engagement session a couple weeks ago. So this is going to sound really familiar. So I'm going to keep it as short as I can. And then hopefully we can get into more of the discussion during the discussion section. So this is an agenda just for this presentation. Okay, again, site location, Leckey Gardens is located just a block set back from Langston Boulevard. It is on the south side. It is surrounded by condominium buildings to the east and west, the Lehigh shops and its associated service parking lot to the north, and then single family homes to the south, as well as Woodstock Park to the southeast. Existing conditions, the main things we want you all to note here is that there is a steep grade change from the north to the southern portion of the site. And then also the 21st Street North, which you can see in the lower right-hand picture, that is a private driveway. So that it's a private road. So it's owned by the shopping center, Lehigh Shops. So there we probably will be restricted on what we can do with that. And we can talk about that when we get to that section of the discussion. Okay, for land use and zoning, the current GLUP designation is low medium residential. The applicant is requesting a GLUP amendment to low office apartment hotel. Current zoning is RA 818 residential. The requested rezoning is to CO 1.5 mixed use. All right, as you all know, the site is within the location of the Langston Boulevard area plan. It is in with area 3, which is considered the heart of the corridor, and we'll look at more specific plan guidance on subsequent slides. And then 3 land use applications that we're here to review are a GLUP amendment, as I mentioned, from low medium residential to low office apartment hotel, rezoning from RA 818 to CO 1.5, and then a new site plan to demolish the existing site and construct an 11-story residential building with 249 units, 100% of which are committed affordable housing units. Okay, so a little more about the development statistics. The site is 1.36 acres. Density, this is a dwelling units per acre district, so it's 183 dwelling units per acre, which comes out to 249 total units. The parking has slightly been revised. If you did look at the staff report of the presentation ahead of this meeting for tonight, you will see that the applicant did submit revised site design. Staff has not had a chance to thoroughly review that yet. It has to go a pretty intense technical review. So we're still in the process of doing that. We just received it less than a week ago. But we can provide you with some basic, we can show you the revised site design and then provide you with some rudimentary basic parking statistics as they have slightly changed. They have gone down from 222 total spaces to 218. So just want to point that out here. And then for building height, it's the permitted building height in the CO 1.5 as well as the plan is 10 stories, but the plan also allows up to 125 stories. Proposed building height is 11 stories, 110 feet. We'll talk about that more on a subsequent slide. For sustainable design, they are not participating in the green building incentive policy because this is an affordable housing project. So that's how they're earning their additional density. So they're not, again, that's a voluntary program. So they're not required to participate in green building, but however, they are willing to achieve, they've agreed to achieving the LEED Silver certification. And the proposed zoning modifications are for additional density, additional building height, density exclusions, residential parking ratio reduction, and then loading spaces reduction, which may need to be taken off if you've added a loading bay, but we can talk about that too. Okay, so looking more at land use and zoning, again, the current land use okay, so the proposed multifamily building is consistent with the plan and the guidance for the site. With density, the proposed GLUP amendment to low office apartment hotel is consistent with the plan's recommendation for the future GLUP designation for the site and establishes a base density of 72 units per acre. Plan outlines policy expectations for achievement of plan goals, specifically affordable housing for the increment of growth above the GLUP designation for anything above the base, which is 72 units per acre. The proposed rezoning to CO 1.5 is also recommended by the area plan and is consistent with the site's future GLUP designation to low OAH. Then here we have the I guess this is set on the transitions from the presentation. Okay, sorry about that. The affordable unit mix is outlined here. Okay, so for site design, you can see this is the original change that, or the original site design that's been shown in materials prior to today's meeting. And this is with the main entrance on Woodstock, as well as the loading access, and then two separate entrances for P1 and P2 parking access on Woodstock. So staff had concerns with this. We met with the applicant. They were willing to make some revisions to their site design. And late last week, they submitted a revised site design, which we kind of teed up in the online engagement materials that we thought was coming, was a revised design in which the parking accesses are both consolidated for P1 and P2 into one parking access point. So sorry. And then relocated to North Woodrow Street. Again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is generally appears to be more consistent with the plan guidance than their previous site design. However, we have not concluded our technical review, so we still need, Sergio's entire team needs to still review this and ensure that we can make this work, that this is actually feasible. So hopefully we can come back to this at SPRC 2. Okay, so for building height. I know this gets very technical. So the area plan calls for a maximum building height of 10 stories or approximately 125 feet along the 21st Street North on the northern end of the block, then tapering down to 7 stories in the middle, then 5 stories on the southern portion of the block. As demonstrated in the building height and form map on the left, the portion of the building that fronts 21st Street North is 10 stories tall if measured from average sidewalk elevation, and 10 stories is what you'd see if you're looking at the building from Langston Boulevard. However, due to the steep grade change in the zoning ordinance requirement of measuring building height from average site elevation, the P1 parking level technically counts as an additional story. However, the building height in feet of 110 feet, 0.8 and change, is well within the maximum height range for the site, which permits building heights up to 125 feet. So the plan established a height in feet range, which is this table right here, in order to accommodate for sites like Leckey Gardens where there is a steep grade change. So it's the reason that was added into the plan guidance. Okay, and calculated average site elevation may affect number of proposed stories. Given these factors, the proposed building height is consistent with the plan's recommendations. Okay, looking at building form. The area plan calls for buildings to be set back from the southern property line by 35 to 40 feet to accommodate the greenway. The plan then calls for the building to be tapered to provide a suitable transition to the single family homes to the south. For the plan, there should be step backs in the building massing of 10 feet from the build to line on the 6th level, 90 feet on the 10th level. As shown in the plan on the left, the applicant has provided a 10-foot step back on the 5th level, which is appropriate given the grade change, an 80-foot step back on the 7th level, and a third step back of 32 feet on the 10th level, which is appropriate tapering. Okay, for building architecture, I've gone through here, and I pulled out 2 sections of guidance within the area plan from section 433 on building massing and articulation, as well as from section 435 on the design elements section. And I've kind of highlighted in green the areas where I think the building has generally achieved the guidance or that bullet point within the plan, and then the areas in gray may need a little more work from the applicant. However, I would love to hear everyone's thoughts today on the building's architecture. As I understand it, glancing the presentation, I think you all have revised your architecture as well, so we'll hear from the applicant as well. Just generally, this is kind of where we're looking as the previous design, but we'll see what they show in their presentation. Okay.
Hi again, I'm Sergio Benitez. I'm the principal planner for DES for the county. For this project, the site is located in the Waverly Hills neighborhood and is bounded by North Woodstock Street to the east, North Woodrow Street to the west, 20th Road to the south, and 21st Street North, a private street to the north. The site is well supported by multimodal options, including nearby art stops on Cherry Hill Road, bike lanes on North Woodstock Street that span from North Glebe Road to Cherry Hill Road, and a Capitol Bike Share Station just south of Cherry Hill Road. The Boston MU Metro Station, served by Orange and Silver Lines, is located about 1.3 miles from the site. And as Chrissy mentioned, the project is guided by the Langston Boulevard area plan, but also the master transportation plan. What's on the screen right now is just an excerpt from the NTP site highlighted. Tonight, for transportation, we'll be focusing on parking and loading. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key planning documents is the Langston Boulevard area plan. And the other one is the MTP, or Master Transportation Plan. Both documents provide consistent direction on parking and loading, and that it should be located when feasible along non-arterial streets, and driveways should be minimized and consolidated. Within the Langston Boulevard area plan, North Woodstock Street and 20th Road North are called out as primary streets. Meanwhile, North Woodrow Street and 21st Street North are secondary streets. The plan specifically recommends placing parking and loading functions along these secondary streets. It also encourages structured parking or below grade parking to be positioned toward the interior of the block or mid-block along the secondary roadway frontage. On the screen, you'll see the plans that staff have reviewed following the applicant's formal submission. These plans show the proposed access points to a two-level garage as well as loading and trash areas, all accessed from just north Woodstock Street. Pedestrian access will also be concentrated along Woodstock Street, where the main lobby is located, with the secondary entrance along 21st Street North. Regarding parking, the applicant is proposing what's on the screen, though as Chrissy mentioned, there have been some revised plans submitted, so I'll just go over some of the details that we saw in the original submission. There was a total of 222 parking spaces, 210 for residential and 12 for visitor, resulting in a parking ratio of 0.84 spaces per unit. The applicant may have also revised loading details, but in the original submission, we had a loading dock with a 40-foot loading berth and a 15-foot clearance height. And then regarding bike details, those might have been revised as well, but in the original submission, there was 106 spaces, 101 secure class 1 spaces on the P1 level of the garage and 5 visitor class 3 spaces on the outside of the building along North Woodstock Street and 21st Street North. So as mentioned, the applicant has revised the layout. They'll be presenting that shortly. Staff hasn't reviewed that formally yet, and well, I'm sure they're going to show that pretty soon.
This is just the anticipated schedule. So we'll meet again on December 8th to discuss the remaining topics of streetscapes, environmental impacts, open space, and sustainability. We'll probably also do a wrap up of any discussions that needed a follow up for tonight. And then, of course, any changes that come with the project as it evolves through the process. And we'll walk you through tomorrow at noon.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. And that's it for us.
Okay. Thanks, Chrissy. All right, do an applicant presentation.
Yes, Chrissy, are you able to share ours? 'Cause
Yes.
I keep getting kicked out of Teams for some reason.
You want or is it the same one you sent me last week or Monday? Okay. You want to navigate?
Got the clicker?
Sure. Well, thank you for that presentation. My name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable. I'm representing True Ground Housing Partners in this project. We're very excited to be here tonight for the first SPRC meeting for the Leckey Gardens redevelopment. With me tonight to present are Charles Sims with True Ground and Jan McCominik with Davis Carter Scott. You can see the logos there. We have our full team here tonight, either in person and or online. In addition, we also have Gorf Slade, the traffic transportation engineers with us tonight as well. So to kick us off, I'm going to hand it over to Charles to introduce True Ground.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank each of you for being here tonight. Really appreciate you guys interest in this and showing up for the property. So True Ground Housing is an award-winning, mission-driven affordable housing developer. Started in 1989, I'll give you a little bit of detail outside the slide. We've been in Arlington, and we're in Arlington exclusively until about 2019. So we're very focused and committed to this community, and we have a number of developments and properties in this community that we can tour at any time you guys like. We are a core certified resident services organization. So that means we deliver resident services to each of our developments, and we have intensive programs that we do to work with folks throughout the entire life cycle, how people live and work and helping them achieve opportunity and stabilization. We have about 3,000 apartments total. There's about 6,000 folks that live in a True Ground community at any night. We have 2,000 units in the pipeline, and that's the things that are under construction and those things that are coming up. So we have buildings that are under construction. Well, one just finished in Roslyn, not too far from here, and we've got another one under construction in Crystal City right now. in Arlington. We focus on housing that's between 30 and 60% of the area median income. And that is affordable housing. What that means is in Arlington, the median income is about $160,000. So we focus on folks that are, a little more to a bit less than half of that. We target about 10% of our units to permanent supportive housing. And that is folks that might have different developmental needs or different abilities. And we look to serve those folks as a part of our community. And we operate throughout all five regions within the DC metro area. So a little bit about our mission and vision. So mission and vision. We exist to provide quality, affordable housing, resident-centered programming, as we touched on a bit earlier. We help our residents make the most of their home, and that means a lot to a lot of different people at different levels and parts and ability, but we look to serve the entire community. And we believe that every person deserves a place to call home, and it's a foundation for their life and dream. So I'll turn it back over to Zach.
Great, thank you, Charles. And Chrissy did a good job of this already, just laying the context for the site. Is located, as many folks here I'm sure know, it's located right behind the Leckey shops at the existing Leckey Gardens project, which will be demolished and rebuilt entirely as a new affordable housing project. Chrissy went through the zoning changes and the club changes that we proposed, so I'll skip that. I do want to touch upon some of the pages from the Langston Boulevard area plan. I know a lot of folks in this room spent a lot of time on that plan, spent a lot of years on that plan. So we sought to respect the guidance in the plan when we were coming up with the project. As you'll see tonight, one of the most talked about pages or most focused on pages of the plan was this heights map in Area 3. And as many folks are aware, what ultimately the county board approved was something of a compromise, I guess you could say, where there's 10 stories of height that are recommended at the northern portion of the site, tapering down to 7 and down to 5, with an open green space at the southern boundary of the site. And as you'll see, that's exactly what the project is proposed, seeks to accomplish. The plan also has this page, which is somewhat unique. Not many sites in the plan have this level of detail as far as how the sites, the massing, the elevations, and the height should work. This one does. It actually calls out Leckey Gardens in the plan on a specific sheet, which shows exactly how the plan recommended the heights and the setbacks and the tapering work. That was important because of the grade change, so there wouldn't be confusion about how this should be measured. And so, as you can see here, it's pretty prescriptive, and we are following that almost to a T. The plan also has other important recommendations and guidance, including open space. And on this site in particular, there's a recommendation that the new buildings are on the same southern footprint as the existing buildings. And they're set back considerably from the southern property line. The purpose of that was to maintain that line, that building wall, but mainly to provide an overland relief setback, a green area, a buffer from the community. And that we are accomplishing that here. We're keeping the building line on that same building wall face. I'll now turn it over to Jan to go over the development.
My name is Jan Makovnik. I'm with the Davis Curtis Code, and I'm designer and an architect on the project. So just gonna go over redevelopment overview a little bit here. So the redevelopment of an existing Leckey Gardens community, and what we are proposing here on the site and the way the building is currently designed is it's 249 units. All 100% committed affordable units in the building between 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. The building is parked in 2 levels parking garage with 218 parking sections as currently designed, with about 0.80 parking ratio that includes the visitor parking. Most of the parking, the way it's designed, is actually below grade because of the grading. Obviously, there are parts of the garage that is significantly above grade, but from this view, actually, the garage is not visible at all. Everything is below grade from this view, which you see on the right. The massing is dimension is in compliance with Langston Boulevard, and actually it's very specific and actually almost basically dictates the massing of the building. It, in my opinion, makes the building actually more interesting and attractive and probably less from the scale standpoint, actually make it look smaller than actually it is and what it really encloses and with the program in it. We are complying with all the setbacks and buffers. I mean, on the three sides, we're fronting the streets, 21st Street on the north, Woodstock and Woodrow Street. And on the south, we are a significant green buffer that works as a stormwater detention and also overland relief. And also this area that we actually preserving the existing trees help us really to achieve and meet a 35% canopy requirement for the site, which is pretty rare and very unusual, I believe, with most of the projects with this kind of density. And we are aiming for the LEED silver in sustainability. And so the building also provides a private courtyard for residential. This is the site plan. I mean, basically just depicts what I just described. The building fronting three sides on the Woodstock on the right, Woodrow on the west, and 21st Street to the north. The buffer, the green buffer at the south. The way the building is laid out is an internal courtyard, and we can start talking about it now. We changed quite a few things on this building, and what you see here already, what it starts, so it also impacted the site layout, is that we changed actually the building entrance, and just because of the geometry of the site and the northeast corner, and the massing of the building, it just simply asks for really entrance to being there. It's just the most logical space. And it's the first thing you kind of see when you're walking from Langston, from the north side. So now I'm going to go through the renderings, and we did a lot of work on the building. We changed most of these elevations, and like this is the first thing that we changed. We made the corner actually more prominent, and we placed the main building entrance at the corner now, and that really made a big difference. We believe in that, and also changed some of the materials. The building, this side of the building was 10-story. The way we articulating this side of the building is all brick masonry with a vertical fenestration, mostly the vertical articulation with some reliefs. There was also a comment about the materials and changing the planes. So they're actually these parts, they're kind of darker what you see vertical. They are recessed into the building and creating reliefs. And what we're also doing, there is a secondary entrance to the right that is also expressing this green color. There's this kind of a green canopy that wraps around that whole base, where are most of the common areas of the building. And this is my favorite elevation, and this is really the Langston plan in the picture, really, with the windows, essentially. What we did on this one, this was the biggest change. We completely reorganized the garage of the building, and we managed to basically get rid of one entrance and provide internal ramp inside the garage, which actually allowed us to, just losing 4 cars, which allowed us to completely change this side of the building. We created the 2-step, we created this kind of a masonry brown base. We organized the parts that are enclosing the garage, aligned it with the typical floors, the windows, so the fenestration. So now it really looks very nice and a lot more at a human scale. So it's going to be way more pleasant to walk down the Woodstock Street. And this is a great depiction that what you see here with the stepping and what's been kind of dictated through the plan. Many times you wouldn't really design the building like that, but simply the massing, the way you read it and what we play with the materials and colors, we actually make the building look a little bit like almost a group of buildings rather than one single large building. And we also think that because of that, it allows us to break up the scale and make the building perception be that it's a much smaller building than its reality is. This is another view just from the other side. This is the circle at Woodstock Street. And again, when you're approaching the building from the side, you even don't see the 9 and 10-story portion of the building, really. It appears to you that this is the 4 to 6-story building rather than. And also because we have the large tree buffer, the trees are really screening nicely that side that we are preserving those trees. And they're creating kind of usually the first step when the building transition from the street, when the building is transitioning from the street to the trees to 4-story, 6-story. So it's almost part of the architecture and the stepping. And this is just a close-up of the entrance. This is again the main entrance at the chamfered corner. We use like a 2-story expression and make it way more visible, more prominent, which a building of this size truly deserves. And also with the colors, we differentiated the areas with they're enclosing the common areas and where the colors of the building are. And this is the night shot I was just saying, we need to include it because many people going home, especially this time of year, that's how you're going to really see the building in the evening. This is another quick shot. This is just a detail of the base of the building. This is on the 21st Street, showing the lobby and the common areas. And this is kind of the different type of storefront here, which is a lot more activated, more transparent. And that's the public area of the building. On the right side, what you see, there is a secondary entrance to the building. It's halfway on the 21st Street. This image here, we wanted just to show you how much we changed the base of the building and how much we changed the experience that you would have from the previous proposed elevations by eliminating these parking entrances and organizing these facade really nicely and really bringing it to scale, aligning with the typical floors and making it way more organized. And this is just the other side. This is the Woodrow side when this is the side that's going to have now just a single parking entrance. So you just kind of see there, because of the way that the building works on this side, the grade is a little bit higher, quite a bit higher than on the Woodstock side. So we actually, on this side, there is a garage on the lower level, the upper level, there are already units and there is a parking entrance. This is just a section depicting again what the Langston Boulevard approved massing is for this project with the setbacks from 4 to 6 to 9 to 10 floors and with the dimensions because there are really specific lines really that we followed in this section here. And now I'm going to go, so what we did was from the original plans, this is the lower level of the parking garage. So again, as I explained, we created an internal ramp, which allow us essentially to consolidate two entrances to one, and also we moved it and it worked pretty well to the west side, to the Woodrow side. This is the second parking level, and so you're going to see on the left side there's a parking entrance from the Woodrow Street, and also on this level has a lot more other functions as well. As you can see, the internal ramp that brings you down to the lower level. Below that are the parking for bicycles. It's a bike room, and on to the right you see the loading dock that's still on the Woodstock side, and some other support and back of the house areas inside its garage. This is the ground floor of the building, again with the revised entrance and the northeast corner, and the common areas in the northeast corner, like the lobby, leasing, and other functions, with also the loading that pops up into this floor because it's a two-story space. And the rest of it is just pretty much a residential unit. This is kind of an O-shape enclosed floor plate with the internal courtyard. And this is the floor number 1. And we can go now a bit faster. So this would be floors 3 to 4. So the building is still kind of an O-shape with enclosed courtyard, and these are all just units. It's a floor 5 and 6. When its building starts stepping a little bit, you see it on the south a little bit. So that's the first step after the 4th floor, but still with enclosed courtyard. And now we are going to the floor plan, which from level 7. When you can see these X's, those are basically the roofs below, but just the actual building footprint is kind of just U-shaped at this point, and the courtyard actually opens up towards south with less units. This is just another floor that actually showing transition for the stairs. So this is repeated floors in some, there are just minor tweaks to it, so there is no significant change. This is the very top floor, which setbacks even further, the 10th floor. So you can see it's relatively small floor plate. Again, I mean, but we want to take advantage of it and put more units in affordable units in the project. So this is just a unique 10th floor with all the X's are really the roofs shown below. And now back to Zach.
Great, thanks, Jan. And we're not going to get too much into this because I know this is going to be the focus of later SPRC. But we did already mention a little bit about that green buffer area. We're going to have stormwater features there, which we'll talk a lot more about in the next meeting. But just want folks to understand that there is a purpose for that, and we have designed that there in that space as called for in the plan. We've also, I think Jan mentioned, we've incorporated all the streetscape that's required and recommended in the plan as well. Community benefits, another thing we'll talk about in the next SPRC. Obviously, the major benefit is the affordable housing project brought by True Ground, one of the preeminent affordable developers in the region. And this may in fact be the first project approved under the Langston Boulevard area plan. I think it actually will at this point. So it's very exciting to see this project coming forward. There's other projects in the pipeline, but obviously a lot of folks spent a lot of time on this plan, and it's nice to finally be getting to the point where we're talking about projects and something coming to fruition here. The other thing I'll say just before wrapping up, and Jan touched on this, is that since the prior submission, we've really done a lot of work. And we front loaded that work because we're on such a quick timeline. Changing that building entrance is more complicated than he's letting on. That was not easy. And we had to basically reorient the parking. It's not so simple as just taking the entrance and putting it on the other side. That took a lot of work. The building facades was a huge undertaking by Jan and his team mainly. I'm actually glad Chrissy kept the old ones in her presentation so you could see the differences there. But it's essentially an entire rework of the facade and the skin of the building. And so I didn't want to miss that. I just wanted to highlight that we did quite a bit of work to get to where we are today, acting the feedback from the community, from staff, from Langston Boulevard Alliance, from Waverly Hills, trying to address those comments as best as we can. Any last words, Charles, before we wrap up?
No, thank you all so much. Truly appreciate your input on this.
Thanks, folks. Okay, just a quick time check, 7:41. So this is what we're gonna do. We've got 3 agenda topics. We've got land use and density, building height, form, and architecture, and then kind of the parking, loading, aspects of transportation. So let's jump into the agenda topics. What I'm gonna ask is, we're not going to go like round the circle. Folks can just raise their hand, right? Ask questions, comments. I want to make sure folks have an opportunity to speak before we do repeat customers. I'm going to try to do like 15, 20 minutes, like tops per topic, maybe less depending on how it goes, because I suspect there's a decent amount of public comment. We want to obviously provide time for that. So that being said, so let's open it up. If folks have questions or comments regarding land use and density, you can just raise your hand in the room. And if folks online want to speak to or ask questions about land use and density, you can go ahead and raise your hand now. All right, well, I see our first customer. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, okay. Waverly Hills is very concerned about the 11 stories. It was very clear at the county board hearing, which I was at, that the maximum number of stories would be 10, even though it's within the feet. Under the preliminary concept plan, which the staff presented to Waverly Hills, it was 7 stories, and that's what Waverly has supported, and we will continue to support that.
We'll go to William Way online, followed by Andrew Herrera.
Great, thank you. I'm from the Park and Recreation Commission. So my first question is about recreation facilities. Are there any recreation facilities within this building for either the residents or neighborhood residents? Can you address that?
Certainly. So there'll be plenty of facilities, plenty of amenity space inside of the building for residents. However, because of the financing, with it being an affordable housing tax credit development, the facilities are for the use of the residents of the building. Now, what will be open space in terms of the rear will be available to the public to use and enjoy the open space to the south of the property, but the space on the inside or the amenity space that's being developed will be for the use of the residents.
Okay, that makes sense. Regarding the outside, as you just mentioned, are there any dog parks or run areas that local residents can use?
Not being developed by this property.
Okay. All right. I also have, I don't know if this is for the environmental session next time, but
Well,
regarding
do you mind waiting then? If it's not related to land use and density, you might hold on to your question.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure if it is or not. That's why I'm raising it. Are these native species trees that are being planted? Is that an environmental question you want me to hold, or?
That would be something we would cover in the second meeting. So just note that, and we'll cover it on the 8th.
Will do. I do have a question related to the transportation and parking matter. Yep,
we'll get to that in a little bit later.
All right. Okay, great. I'll hold off. Thank you.
Andrew Ferrer, what organization are you representing?
Park
the Tenant Landlord Commission.
All right.
Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, please.
No problem. I just have a quick question. Are you replacing all the beds or all the units in the current structure?
Great question, Andrew. So the current property is 40 units. We're putting 249 units back. What's unique about the Leckey Gardens property today is there are 4-bedroom units that are on site, which, as you all may know, are pretty uncommon. We are replacing those 4-bedroom units inside of this development. So every resident at the property will have the opportunity to move back to that property once it's completed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Charlie Hinkin, Donaldson Run Civic Association representative. I concur with Sandy's comments about height. We had the same objections at that time when the Langston plan put forward these heights that you're building to. In addition, we strongly object to the notion that the building heights in the plan represent a ceiling against which everyone builds, rather than a ceiling below which one can build. Stick-built is cheaper, stick-built make more sense, and this suggests that we'll have a canyonization from Glebe Road all the way up to Woodstock if everyone builds up to the admitted heights. So we don't agree with that vision for what should, excuse me, for what should happen here.
I want to put myself on the list. I think this is probably for you, Charles. A couple questions about, look, can you walk us through, just generally speaking, the methodology for the bedroom mix? I know you get this question because there's actually a decent amount of 3 bedrooms that you're proposing here. A healthy amount of 2 bedrooms, obviously. So can you just kind of generally walk us through how you're getting so many 3 bedrooms and kind of how you came to that conclusion?
Sure. So first I want to start with the resident experience, right? And who we hope to serve. So we hope to serve families. And as you all may be aware, many developments come with majority 1 bedrooms or studios. You'll notice there's no studios planned here. The goal is to house families and to give families the opportunity to experience the great schools and the great amenities that Arlington provides. With that, that's the basis of how we start thinking about how we, come to a unit mix. Followed by that, we look to see what is it that's going to make sense in terms of 1, from a financing perspective, but 2, from, well, most importantly, a who we serve perspective. And that's how we look to have a majority of family units. So it's over 80% of the building are family units, targeting 2 and 3 and 4 bedroom households in this property. So the goal is, let's give as many people as we can the opportunity to experience this great community that we all enjoy.
Follow up, Charles. If you, so this is 249 units, right? So if it was a smaller building, let's say, because sometimes True Ground and other affordable housing developers do 120, 150 units, depending upon the site. How would that, that's an obvious question, how would that impact kind of the unit mix and how that shakes out?
Yeah, so we would still try to serve as many families as possible, but it would require us to reduce the building dramatically. We studied reducing the heights on this to be responsive to some of the concerns from the community. And the issue is, due to the grade here, you cannot really do what's just a stick building. You're required to do what's basically a concrete building if you go to 7 stories. And by doing that, the costs are extremely high. And it's not really financially feasible at those heights, considering the density that we need to make this building work from an economic perspective. But in addition, it helps us serve more folks if we're going to build a concrete building, to build to what the plan outlined for the site.
But if you build stick built, it would be cheaper.
We can't build.
Why can't you build stick
at 7 stories? Because of the grade differentials. So we're not allowed, the cost doesn't work in terms of the geometry of the site.
Yeah, because if you think about it, there are so many other costs than just construction costs in the building. There are services that are provided for people that live there. You try to dilute that cost over as many uses as you can. And the problem with this site is that if you do a wood construction, the height of the building is measured from the lowest point of the fire lane around the building. So they would make you to measure on the corner of Woodstock and 20th Road. And from there, you can be maximum 75 feet. Which basically, if you have to provide parking and other things, you might be able to actually, overall, might be able to just fit like 4 floors. You might not even be able to go to 5 floors with a stick-built construction. Because the fire lane, the site with the grade slow change, it's actually really penalized. You want to have a flat site for it. That would really work. But with these sites, it would not. It would just way too many units.
All right. Give me 1 second. I got you. So just a reminder to members of the public. So the discussion is with the site plan review committee membership. Folks are on that roster representing an organization. So if you're not on the SPRC roster, we're happy to have you, but we will get you at the end in public comment. Go ahead.
Do we have the square footages of the units? Primarily the 3 and 4 bedrooms?
I don't think I have that with me, but I can get that to you.
I'll go ahead because I got another question. Do you have an idea of how many permanent supportive housing units might be going into this building?
Great question. So we strive to target the 10% permanent supportive housing. So that's roughly about 24 units of the 249 that are going to be here.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you very much for the presentation this evening. Thank you for the engagement that you've done with the community so far and the changes that you've made between the online engagement and tonight. First of all, thank you for bringing more affordable housing to the community and the work that you've done so far. I think I'm pretty supportive of the project in that it adheres with a very recent plan. I mean, we have a plan that's just a couple of years old. This is the second project that's being proposed for the plan. So I think it's reasonable to support the plan that the community came together and agreed on. And with that said, I'm really encouraged that there is such a massive setback at the 5th or 6th level, so that from the neighborhood view, it really looks like it only is going to appear to be a 5 or a 6-story building, which is a nice kind of transition to the neighborhood. It's what was talked about. If we were really proposing an 11-story building right next to the neighborhood, I think that exists in Arlington. It exists in my high rise. We're right next to some 2-story townhouses. We're a 13-story building, but it is very still awkward, even if it does exist in Arlington. But the fact that there's that pretty significant transition, I think makes this project pretty reasonable. I mean, I do look forward to hearing more from the public and what they're thinking based on this latest iteration. But, you know, having a 5-story building or the appearance of a 5-story building right next to the single family homes, which then kind of very gradually tapers up to 11 stories, you know, feels reasonable to me.
And I'd like to align myself with Commissioner Peterson's comments. Do we have anybody online? Okay, going once. Okay, go ahead.
Just curious, I appreciate the explanation about if you have wood construction, the constraints that go into that, given the requirements for safety vehicles to be able to save a building that's on fire. Do you have a sense of, could you give me some ballpark figure of how much more expensive it is to do a 7-story non-wood building versus a 10-story non-wood building?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, okay, cost becomes cost prohibitive. What are we talking about here? Is it, you know, 50% more expensive or 10% more expensive?
We cannot give you a percentage, but again, if you think about a project, and there are so many costs involved with the project, building the parking, doing the infrastructure, utility works. There's also foundation works. And when you do that, more you put on it, it goes down. I cannot give you a percentage, but it goes down quickly. But in this case, it's also not just about it. It's about operating, servicing the building, and all the other costs there in the long term. And through ground, it's a long holder on these buildings, and that might up to huge numbers over time.
I'd like to add something else to it. So recently what we've found is the cost differential between wood and concrete has been shrinking. And the reason that is because of insurance. So as you all may be aware, insurance prices are changing, and a wood building has different insurance risks and it's than a concrete building. So we're seeing that there's not that big of a spread as we're looking at development kind of across the region between the cost. It's not as big as it used to be a while ago.
And in my one more time, actually, because actually lots of commercial projects and for like market rate projects are doing actually a wood construction. That's why also there is a lot more in there. It's HPC usually. It's actually not that many concrete projects.
I'm not arguing for wood. I'm just asking about the difference between a concrete 7-story building and a concrete 10-story building.
Yeah, and it's just hard to give you that percentage of that number right now. That's the difference. So we're just giving you
a big part of your argument, so that might be helpful.
Sure.
I think we've basically transitioned to building height and form, which is all good in architecture. I don't think there are any other comments on land use and density. So let's transition to building height, form, and architecture. If folks have questions or comments.
Yeah, I did have a question.
Hold on. I'll get you one moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about the revised drawings, actually, when you're walking down Woodstock. It appears like you would be looking into windows of the garage. Am I right about that?
Yeah, these are architectural grills.
Architect for the garage. Yeah. So is there some reason that you can't lower the garage and have the architecture be better? Have the units starting on the ground floor?
So I think part of how the building was laid out is also comes down to cost, right? Because if you think about it, we're not necessarily excavating at that point, we're excavating a portion of it. The deeper you go, the higher the cost would be and the higher per unit cost. So
But also the better the architecture. I think that this will look like on Woodstock, if you all have ever walked down Langston Boulevard against the Homewood Suites building, that's what this will look like for people walking from Lee Heights down to Woodstock Park. It will look like looking into a very nothing parking garage, I think. That's what it appears to me.
Yeah, can you speak to what the pedestrian experience might be like with these grills or how this was envisioned?
Well, again, I mean, I think it's, this can be done in different ways, but I mean, we will have to have a use. It will have to be the garage, the way the land works and with the stepping and the way the garage needs to be done, we will need to maintain it as a garage. So there are different ways to do it. We've done it such a ways that you actually kind of put like like fake windows basically, right? To make it feel like there are units
They
there.
don't really look like real windows. They sort
No,
of-
those are not windows. We actually put these, we have on purpose, we actually put in an architectural grid, which can be a very nice ornamental piece of steel or iron that would be used. They could be nice, but we actually feel that that would be, because that would actually bring a little bit of activation. Also, you're not going to walk by the completely a blank wall. So you actually might see some light, some movement and some, so it might actually feel a little bit safer rather than creating just completely blank wall that are just masonry and there was nothing on it. So we do feel that actually, this actually helps with a little bit activation, and maybe the feel of maybe a little bit of a safety, because you might see people inside, you are outside. It's a different feel than you completely separate that.
But it would be much better if they were units. If the parking garage were lower and those were actually units.
But also, if you
Which it is
remember,
now.
yeah, but if you also remember that line that is actually shown there between the windows actually and the base, which is the garage, that line is at grade actually at the top. So you would have to essentially start that way and somehow just kind of step down there.
No, I understand under
And-
this design.
Yeah,
I'm saying if you
yeah.
lowered the parking garage.
So part of the issue, right, is when you have so remember, part of the garage is going to be underground and the other part is exposed.
Right.
When those are units that are underground, you have all sorts of other issues that come up in terms of water penetration,
Yeah.
making, windows light, right? So our aim was to keep all of the residential floor plate, similar across, and then you have the garage, which is partially underground. So it was easier to do that on the portion of the garage where there's no windows and you don't need there to be windows. So that's part of the reason to explain why this is like this.
There's actually also the problem that would you create, because you theoretically could do it, but it would create very inefficient floor plates when you actually do like half of the building on that ground floor, just the garage, and the other one, once it comes out of the ground, you start doing units as well. But also the problem is that the taller part of the building is on the north side. And imagine you have elevators which need to be on the tallest part of the building that has to connect all the floors all the way to the 10th floor. Now we suddenly start introducing units on the south side. You need to provide completely different elevator service for that, because those has to be accessible elevators as well. So you're completely making a building completely inefficient that way. And providing a separate elevator services on the south end of the building and the north end.
But that's why the site would be better if it was developed in 7 stories.
Can you guys, I guess, like, if I can interject myself here a little bit, like, we may not agree on some of this stuff, but like, maybe one of the things for you all to consider is at the minimum, if you can consider some mitigating measures, right, about what that pedestrian experience kind of looks like. I'll just throw that there as a suggestion. I know we have many hands. I'm gonna go to, is it William Way online? And then I
Yep,
will.
that's me.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Following up on, there was a mention of supportive housing, what percentage, et cetera. Is there any housing that is dedicated or designated for older adults? Or if not, would you be willing to do that?
So this is a family building, and what family means is that it is not age restricted, which means we can have residents of any age in the building. When we have a senior building, that means we are restricting the age to anybody. You have to be 62 or older, or whichever the designation is for that. So this is unrestricted. So we will have folks living in the building that are of all ages, a whole suite of it.
Right, I understand that, but so would you consider dedicating some to older adults since that is a growing population in Arlington? That's my question.
Yeah, the answer is this is not going to be a senior building. Those are two very different designations. We'd have to designate, we can't choose which units are senior and which ones aren't, right? And we can't take a family building and then discriminate on the basis of age, if that makes sense. We can do that with a senior building. It can be entirely a senior building, or we can do that with but with this one, we chose to leave it unrestricted and open as a family building.
Okay, I don't consider that discrimination, but thank you for your answer.
All right, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Peterson and then Commissioner Antoni.
So I actually was thinking along the lines of my colleague over here about the parking garage kind of windows don't look that great as proposed. So one possible mitigant that I've seen done elsewhere in the community is like public art in that space. And if I know you're proposing a public art contribution as for your community benefits, maybe that public art contribution could be used on site so that the residents benefit from the contribution, and it kind of makes that sidewalk like a bit of a treat to walk down and see the public art. And it's the building I used to live in had this. It was 1800 Oak Apartments. So there's some nice public art in the area where the other side, I'm pretty sure, is the parking garage, and it's on grade building. So there's the slope in a very similar way. So I think public art could be a nice way to activate that area.
That's great.
Jim.
Yeah, I get why the garage ends up being exposed, even though the county policy generally does discourage having garages right up against the sidewalk. Adding the look in, so it's not a solid wall, is an improvement. I have no argument with that, but it should be better. I agree with that. It's still not where it needs to be. The other thing that's missing in this building is biophilic elements. Is there some way you could combine those fake windows or those openings with biophilic elements like vines growing through it or something like that? I mean, it's called Leckey Gardens, and there's no gardening in this at all anymore. So if we could add more green, it might make that wall, that garage wall, more tolerable and and would be more pleasant to walk along if it is biophilic rather than just being stone and metal, stone and metal. So, I'm wondering if that would be a possible thing that we could look at. The overall architecture is improved. Putting the entrance at that corner, I think, is an excellent move. Very supportive of that. Overall, the building is better than the last iteration, but it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's not there yet. I still think it's a fairly bland looking building. It's not up to the quality of the other affordable housing buildings that we have in the county, such as in up from Roslyn, or there's some in Ballston that I think sometimes those buildings look better than the market rates next to them and the luxury building next to them. This, again, you made improvements and I give credit for that, but it's still, I don't think it's there yet. It's still a little too much going on, I suppose, with it. Again, I'm not an architect, so this is just, it's my aesthetic opinion. Anyway, so that, I'll yield the floor now.
Okay, I'm just wondering if maybe the existing building between brick, the one facing 21st Street, if that band can be highlighted more, because that's more at the height that people are used to. And so I'm wondering if that's your first datum, and then you build up in a horizontal lines what different heights you need to achieve so that it carries more of the heights from the lower tiers up to then eventually going up to the 10th floor. And the 10th floor is the one that's most set back or most different. Instead of, it seems like you're highlighting the vertical lines, which is probably the biggest problem that some of the public is having. So I'm just wondering if, kind of remembering the existing building facing 21st Street, which is also facing the stores, which also are brick, if that would help you. If you've done it here, I think maybe more of the kind of horizontal banding might help you. Also, I'm not understanding why there are two entrances basically in the same area, like the corner and then on 21st Street.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, that'd be
So-
great, because I'm not sure.
Okay, so the financing of this building will be a hybrid or twinning LIHTC structure, which means there's two separate buildings inside of one building, two legally separate buildings inside of one building. And both of them are required to have separate entrances. So the entrance facing the Lee Highway shops are directly north, facing 21st Street is the 4% entrance, and the entrance facing the corner is the 9% entrance. So it's a requirement of the financing to have those two separate entrances.
Okay, are you a member of the SPRC?
No.
Okay, so we will do public comment at the end. Right now, the discussion is just with the folks.
It's a
From
question.
the committee. Yep, and I get it, but right now the questions and discussion are with the committee.
And I really like the idea, if I could
Go
feel
ahead, no, go ahead.
the brick being used for the parking. I think the brick is a heavy material, so it will ground the building. And then using some of the decorative elements that we're talking about, whether it's biophilic or public art, I think that's going to really help. But I also appreciate the fact that sometimes it is what it is. And so the fact that it's parking, sometimes parking can be sexy. So I don't, you know, as an architect myself, I'm just saying that I've had to do all kinds of weird things to make a driveway better. So there are maybe ways in which you're looking into something that isn't necessarily the most nefarious thing you've seen. It might be that the lights inside the parking are interesting. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe the cars are beautiful, but.
I got a blank wall with biophilic, the Wendy on Wilson Boulevard that just
Yeah.
opened. It's really surprisingly effective that the blank wall has those biophilic elements.
I think that's a great idea. And good lighting,
Yeah.
always helps, but it is you're gonna walk by a pretty much a blank wall, even though there might be some interesting stuff to look at.
I've got a couple questions, hopefully, or quick questions. On the step backs, we're not planning for any like public use by residents, like on the roofs, like there's no patios or anything big proposed, are there?
There is a courtyard.
There's a courtyard, where?
In the middle.
In the middle, I'm saying, but on the roofs of the.
Yeah, those upper roofs, those,
Yeah.
below the 10th floor, those intermediate roofs. We're not planning to have any.
Okay.
any
Okay,
functions
I
there.
didn't think so, but I wanted to confirm. And then, just a very random question, but, so I saw the bikes, a lot of bike storage. I think that's wonderful. That's great. With the vehicles, does True Ground do like any charging stations for EVs? Like, I don't know if that's a need with the residents, and it very well may be where people are owning EVs, but have you done that? Are you thinking about doing that?
So what we're proposing for this development are 10 EV ready spaces.
Okay.
So as there is a need, or if there's a need, those spaces can be converted to we can add charging stations.
Okay.
And it's usually pre-wired for that, and you have a capacity in your transformers for that.
Okay, so basically it's ready to go at some point in the future if you want to invest a little bit of money and hook them up.
Well,
Basically.
if there's resident demand.
Exactly.
So yeah, we
Yeah.
always program the building around the needs of the building.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just at the job site, at the site, this evening, and there were a lot of work vehicles parked around the site, and I was at some point bringing up the need for maybe some of the vehicles having enough space inside the parking structure. Do you have larger parking slots for some of the work vehicles that I saw parked all around the apartments?
Well, I mean, there are a few spots in the garage that actually, maybe we can look at the layout, but
Yeah.
there might be some opportunities where you can have a little deeper vehicles. I mean,
Right.
obviously, the garage will not have a significantly higher clearance for like really big.
No, no.
So we're providing usually around 8'6" clear for the garages on the upper levels. That's the maximum clear usually provided. It's also required for handicap van access.
Charles, this might be a good time to speak about the types of vehicles that residents are driving typically in developments.
Sure, so typically our residents are driving regular passenger vehicles, right?
Pictures.
I don't doubt it. I'm not saying you're correct, but, you know, we don't know, so, so it's, are those vehicles at the property, are residents' vehicles, are they not?
Oh, that's why I went in the evening, because I figured that some of those are residents. Because if you go during the day, they're gone, so you won't see them. So tomorrow at noon, we're not gonna see them.
Yes.
You go in the evening and they're parked all around.
Around, taking all
Yeah.
of the space and then.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those are, but they're not parked inside of the parking lot, is that what you're saying?
I went all around the apartment area, and so they're parked along Woodstock and Woodrow.
On the street,
Public street.
on the
Yeah.
public park, but not inside of.
So the ones that were, so there is some site work being done on Woodstock, but those vehicles actually parked next to the cone, so they're clearly belong to that particular job. So I considered the other ones to be the residents' vehicles.
So typically, most of our residents aren't driving work vehicles, right? And so let me explain. I'm saying, you gotta say.
Well, yeah, let's let Charles explain and then we can.
Explain. So I'm not talking about Leckey Garden specifically. I'm talking about the 6,000 folks who are the 3,000 units that we have in our communities. So let's think about who our residents are. Let's center it around that.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily your typical construction worker. It's the server, right? Your barista, your person who's a valet driver, right? It's a mix of folks who have a very set of different professions. So what I'd like to share with you about this is everybody's not driving a construction truck, right? There may be some folks who are, but there's also a lot of folks who aren't. And so when you look at that, we can't build, I mean, we're not, I guess we have to study that exactly who those cars are. Are they vehicles that belong to the property? Are they vehicles that?
I don't disagree that there's gonna be a mixture. I'm just saying maybe if there's a number that is maybe a little more than what you already have, or some study that you can do with people that are gonna go back, just to accommodate some.
Yeah, so we've done,
Yeah.
we have parking utilization studies that we've done at our other properties and how many cars they're taking up. The highest use we have, especially at similarly sized and located buildings along, kind of not metro accessible, is about like a 0.7 in terms of where the utilization is.
Mm-hmm.
So we expect this building to be similar, right? And that's kind of what we're anticipating.
Okay, real quick. If it's about if it's parking, I want to give folks an opportunity to respond to questions, but we're still on architecture and building height. And Eric Goodman, why don't you go ahead? And then I think we're ready to move to parking. So Eric, go ahead.
Well, I thought you were already into parking because you've been talking about a lot.
Does anybody else, let me pause you real quick. Does anybody have any other comments?
I have one, and this could be maybe throwing a bomb into the whole thing, because I know, the step downs fit the plan, but of course, Plan Langston Boulevard, it's not a law, it's guidance. In work with the community, would it be possible to shift the height, all the height, closer to where the Heights is and away from the neighborhood, so that the 4-story part there goes back more than just 10 feet, goes back, maybe 3 or 4 windows, and then fill in that part of that first step down, and maybe make that go a little further out. So can you play with the step backs? Is that something that's possible in order to work with the neighborhood so that it makes the massing seem less overwhelming?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there's another wrinkle in the plan that we haven't mentioned yet, which is that this site actually has its height measured in 2 different ways. And the main way it's measured is average site elevation. That's in the zoning ordinance. Then there's a secondary way of measuring height, which is along that southern property line. the plan directs us to measure the height from the sidewalk, which is a different elevation, which is why you're seeing that lower 4-story section there, because we have to measure differently than we measure the rest of the building. Why the plan did that, I don't know. I mean, I do kind of know. The idea was that they're trying to protect the view shed of the single family residents, the folks at the lowest elevation. So they want to make sure the height's measured from their vantage point, not from some other elevation that's up the hill. But it does create an awkwardness, if you will, in the way that we have to step it down. The issue we have with any plan in Arlington is that once we start deviating from the plan, some people like the deviations and others don't. Right?
That is, I have
so
no argument with that.
we have to go with what the county board decided was the appropriate massing, the prescriptive height on the project. And we might not all like it. There might be things about it that the community doesn't like. There's things about it we might not like. It's a difficult building. I think Jan said he would never have built a building like that or designed a building like this, but we're following a.
Nobody would like it. I would just draw the lines that this is a 7-story building. And I think it's actually a great opportunity. And I think some of these perspectives actually really they picture that this building would feel, with the 240 units, would feel way more massive than it feels. Really.
I think it's just one of those things for folks who are involved with the plan Langston. A lot of folks in this room were involved with it longer than I was. Heights was one of the most sensitive topics. It was one of the most negotiated topics. This site might have been one of the most talked about sites, this and the Lehigh Shops. Now, you saw what happened to the Lehigh Shops. The compromise there is even weirder. But it's a compromise, and the county board was trying to strike a balance between the various interests. One of the policy priorities on the site, the overriding priority is affordable housing. This was recognized as an affordable housing site. The plan seeks to create 2,500 affordable units. How's it going to do that? That's a lot of units. This building alone only does 250 or so.
Create and maintain marks. It's
Right.
not just new caps.
I
It's
understand.
Caps and marks.
There's certain sites that the folks that were working on the plan, the county board knew that this is where we're going to get a lot of units. So there was a balance, and it's tough to say we're going to deviate from that carefully struck balance. Because a lot of the folks in this room might agree, but there's a lot of other folks who may not. And now you put the county board in a bad position where you're asking the board to deviate from a plan that was just approved, a year and a half ago. Go ahead, Sandy.
So Zach, as you know, because we've talked about this many times, the county board wants the affordable housing units. The guidance in the plan for the design of this building is not something they were even involved in. They didn't even talk about it. It was all county staff. So if this building can improve at any way, whether it's stepped or not stepped, that should be the goal of everyone. And that would be what the county board would want. I'm quite sure of it. A better building. The guidance is the county staff guidance. You remember that. That was the whole, I can ask Ginger, she's sitting right here. That was the whole conversation.
Sandy, you and I had many conversations about that, and I think we all respect your opinion greatly on this issue. And I think what came out of the plan was not necessarily what we advocated for. I know it wasn't what you had advocated for, but it was some blend of what everyone wanted, and it's what we ended up with.
But it's also guidance. And I have an email from the county board saying, Sandy, don't worry so much about this. It's guidance, just as Jim just said. So we don't have to do exactly what's in the plan.
And I hear you, but I think if we were to, let's just play this out. If we were to build a 7-story building here, we would be violating the height restrictions in the plan. On half of the
Violating the
building,
height restriction.
on half of the building, we would be above what the plan says we should have.
But I think it would be worth a conversation.
There's a lot
political
of
conversation.
And we're having that conversation right now, and we'll continue to have it. But there's a lot of folks who would be just completely against setting a precedent on the very first project under the Langston Boulevard plan in allowing heights greater than 1.1.
But like Zach, what you're explaining is like, because the site, even within the site, there are height limits.
Yes.
And so this building fits within those height limits. And what you're saying, I think what I'm hearing you say is to make it work, you would just need to uniformly be 7, which would be okay on the frontage, but not okay on the backside.
And I think that's been a suggestion as another path we could take. We can't take that path for economic reasons, so it's somewhat of an irrelevant, I mean, it's somewhat moot. Because we looked at it and we looked at it during the planning process as well. Because that was something that the county staff and I think the Waverly Hills folks in Sandy asked us to look at. So it doesn't work from an economic standpoint. It doesn't work from a plan standpoint, because we would be violating the height restrictions of the plan and the setbacks that the plan seeks to create.
All right, I'm gonna move on to transportation, parking and loading. Eric Goodman, thank you for being so patient. And well, Eric was
You're welcome.
technically first, and then we'll go to William Way. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, thank you. Really, I want to talk, since I'm with the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I want to talk about pedestrian movement throughout this. So my concerns are going to be with adequate sidewalk widths, and also to ensure that the slopes are right, the cross slopes are right, that meet ADA, and that also the alignment of the sidewalks with the crosswalks. So that's really key. So I would like if they could kind of go over that a little bit. It's not really clear from the site plan how wide the sidewalks are, and also if they can talk a little bit about where pickup and drop off might be.
Really sorry. A lot of that is going to be covered in the second meeting because we've bifurcated transportation. So we'll talk about streetscapes. I'm so sorry because you waited 10 minutes. We'll talk about streetscapes in meeting number 2. We're going to get to that. But I do feel like pickup and drop off is sort of within the scope of what we're going to talk about tonight. So can you guys talk about how that is envisioned to work? Site. Let's take that one.
Yeah. Can we pull up site plan, please?
Do you have one in your presentation?
Yeah, let's go back. There was go back I think 2 slides from there. There's one's the closed site plan there. That's good enough right there. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's 2 different things we're talking about now. One are the pickup and drop off, and also we're going to have an accessible parking space along the street as well. Okay. And actually, could bring the slide down just a little bit to see a little more towards the top with it. Thank you very much. So roughly at the top where the new entrance is at corner 21st and Woodstock, just immediately to the right, there will be an accessible.
My apology. I don't see the presentation. I'm not sure why it's not.
We're going to share it. Give us 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for letting us know.
Okay, great. Can you see that now?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, and there's a little cursor that's moving around by the new entrance location, okay, at the corner of 21st and Woodstock. Immediately to the right, it's not shown here because we literally had conversations just earlier today about it, okay, so changing a little bit, but there will be an accessible parking space right there, carved into that node right there where the cursor is. And just to the south of that, there'll be a pickup drop-off space that works really well now with the entrance, where the entrance is going to be over there. So it's not going to be on Woodrow or 21st. It's going to be right there. There'll be an accessible parking space on the street, and then a pickup drop-off space right where the cursor is indicating it. That answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Eric. We'll next go to William Way.
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yeah, this is not about the height. It's not about parking, not about older adults. Wanted to circle back to the recreation facilities for residents. Just briefly, is there a playground? Are there any sports courts? Is there any water feature in this plan?
Great question, William. So the center area is an open space area that we do envision a playground being on site. It hasn't been fully programmed yet, but we're looking at kind of maybe grills or sitting areas along with, sort of a playground feature. And then also, as you all know, there's a playground really close to the site that's outside that we hope residents will also be able to enjoy, as well as the playground that's inside of this central courtyard area.
How about any sports courts?
No, there's not enough space for like a racquetball court or a basketball court or anything like that.
Okay. Any water Is there any water feature? Kind of hard to tell from the drawing.
This is David Jebb with Studio 39. We're not planning on a water feature in the internal courtyard right now.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Plus 3 bike racks on 21st Street, and then maybe one on Woodstock as well for prisoner.
So it's like a big room with a cage around it and somebody can get in with their fob and then there will be 101 parking spaces. And is there space for like cargo bikes or the larger?
I think you showed, you're right in the middle of the building now, you can see that there.
Yeah, it's under that V, that big V, there is a ramp, so these are all there are horizontal and vertical parking spaces.
And there's a door, you see on the left side there?
It's directly when you would enter from Woodrow, you enter and there is a bike room right there. It's pretty close.
So nice. So roll right in from the street, basically right there.
Okay. And could, you know, a family fit like several little bikes in one parking spot theoretically? Just because we want to encourage those kids to be using the bike lanes and.
100%. So John, can you speak to how, if we can fit multiple bikes inside of a space or?
I mean, it's, I mean, we can look at where we can put additional bikes, but I mean, I'm assuming this is like the official way you can lay it out, but maybe there are potentially additional places where you can just, you know, put them, lean it up against the wall, but a few more
Or
bikes if you had.
Can you do that like the hangers? You know, they have some of them,
Yeah.
sometimes hang them.
Yeah, these are kind of Arlington approved standards. There are two options really you have, but you can get creative with that too.
Okay.
So, and just to speak, we do encourage bikes, so, yeah, our bike lanes are very actively used.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Plan Langston Boulevard is assuming we're getting more people on bikes, more people on buses, people having the option to get out of their cars, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question, Sergio. Are you aware of what if any parking restrictions there are on the street parking for like 4 blocks around this site? You know, I know there's no parking on Langston Boulevard itself, but the side streets do have it. You know, next to the Lee Heights Shopping Center, there are street parking. I don't recall any signs that have any restrictions, either the parking in front of the shops or on the side or along the condos across the street. Again, and I assume there's no residential parking in this neighborhood either.
Yeah, so adjacent to the site, there's no residential parking or RPP like reserved just for the site and residents. It's unrestricted, so you'll just see standard parking signs pointing left and right along Woodstock. 21st Street North is a private street, so that doesn't have any parking at all. 20th Road on the southern end, it has parking signs, though it's not really been formalized. But we see that folks park on actually both sides of the street on 20th Road. And then I have to kind of check on Woodrow Street if there's some parking there. Though, yeah, just looking at Street View, there is parking there, but it's also unrestricted. So you'll just see your standard parking signs.
Spaces that are restricted on Woodrow.
Woodrow there.
So there's no time restrictions on any of the parking. No. I mean, I didn't think there are because when I park there, I just pull in park. And there's, you know, no paid parking anywhere. Some of the concern I think is a valid one, that it's a heavily used area for retail. And most of the time you can get a spot in the back. That's actually pretty easy, but there's often unique parking on the sides, or especially like around Lebanon East Verna across the street. So it's a mix. And the concern is that even if you have the units that was the supportive units, which you're presuming those people will not have cars, which you're saying about 10%, that would be 25 spots, yet you're still below 90.9.
So let me speak to that for just a moment.
Yeah.
Right, so we have permanent supportive housing units, and those are folks with different abilities, right? And so often they don't drive, depending on folks' level of ability. We also have 30% area median income unit, and 30% AMI units, roughly around 30-ish thousand a year. Those folks tend to not drive because just the cost of owning a vehicle prohibits it. So, and usually we also have about, I think 50% units. And those folks also are fairly low income and tend to not drive. So when we look at our buildings across the region and we say, well, we don't really get above 0.7, a lot of that is due to us serving deeply affordable households. Like if you look at the cost of owning a car, it's on average, I think $900 some odd a month for folks to own a car, if you factor in all expenses. So we feel with the 50-ish units, the permanent supportive housing units, the 30% AMI units, we're likely not to reach the full capacity of this parking.
For your other developments in Arlington.
Yeah.
And they do have various parking ratios.
Absolutely.
Are any of them fully subscribed or do they have spots that are still not being used?
Yeah, no, all of them, so we had a recent parking study done, which I got. In terms of what the parking usage is, parking utilization study. And so what we found is that parking utilization rates at most most comparable property to this along Columbia Pike, because obviously we don't have affordable housing around Langston for various reasons. Parking utilization was 0.73, right? So 73% was peak utilization rates.
So that means not the number of units, that's how many spaces are being used.
73% of the spaces were being used at our property along Columbia Pike. The one that had like no space had one property reached 90% utilization, and that's of the parking spaces, not of the units. And that was our Terwilliger Spade property, which has a very low parking ratio, considering that's right by Metro. So we don't tend to reach the parking at even some of our most aggressive low parking ratios. We're still not utilizing all of the parking due to the residents that we serve, right? And primarily.
Could you put those numbers out so the rest of the committee can see those for the next meeting?
Some of it, I can't necessarily share the parking study just because of some of the data, but I'll look to see what I can share, and I'll do my best to disclose that.
And can you indicate if those locations are close to a metro where people would not need cars, as opposed to this is far from a metro where people would need cars?
Exactly, and that's why I specified our developments along Columbia Pike, which are the furthest from a metro and the ones that are most similar to this development that is not near that.
And also 2-3 bedroom units where they might have 1 or 2 cars.
Well, it's very rare to have somebody with multiple vehicles due to the resident populations.
But is the distribution of 2 and 3 bedroom units the same as it is here?
We serve family, we strive to serve families.
Same ratio.
Yeah, this is not like our senior buildings, which tend to have, very.
So, yeah, I mean, if you can like contextualize that a bit and then like, obviously, like we do pre-meets, so we'll talk before the next meeting and that will be one of the updates. Go ahead, Sandy.
Charles, I'm surprised that you're using Columbia Pike because Columbia Pike has very good bus service. We have no Metro bus on Langston Boulevard or Cherry Hill Road. They took it away, as you know.
Yeah.
So there is no Metro bus as of July. There's only the ART bus. So there is no service here. There's very good service on Columbia Pike. So I'm surprised that you're using that for the study to compare it to streets like this. This is not a major arterial. These are 4 little small local streets surrounding this site.
So what we're looking at are similarly situated new construction buildings. So that way the product type was similar and we had a similar density, right? And so we wanted to see what is the parking utilization at those properties? And for the ones that we have that were on Columbia Pike, which is the closest place where we have these new construction developments, this is what it showed.
New construction, but not the same transit.
Also, I guess I want to just emphasize that, so along Langston Boulevard, you're right, with the Metro bus that's not doesn't serve Alonso anymore, but we still have the 55 art bus. And then the property is located very close to Glebe Road. Glebe Road is still being served by the Metro bus along with the art bus. And both of those bus stops are within a short walk from the site.
But there, it is not in the walkability zone for a Metro site.
Not from the Metro site, yes. And those bus sites do provide access to Metro. The one on Glebe provides direct access to Boston, the Boston Metro, and the one on Langston provides direct access to the Ralston Metro as well as the Falls Church Metro.
Right. So one other question, I've been hearing from people that your sites, your site at Boston, your other site at Washington Boulevard, that people are complaining, tenants, that there isn't sufficient parking. Is that not true?
I can comment on that. Parking is tight at the two properties that you mentioned.
Even though they're in the R&B corridor, the one.
They are, but
Yeah.
the parking ratios there are much more aggressive. So our, excuse me, the Unity Home site, which is in Boston, is I believe a 0.3 parking ratio. And the one on Washington Boulevard, I believe is a 0.48 parking. So that's significant. I mean, it is tight on both of those garages, no doubt. But they're much more aggressive.
But aren't you having to find other parking spaces because of that? And what if that happens here? Where will you go to find parking, additional parking? There are 21 spaces, public spaces on street, on those little roads that surround the site. And you have a deficit, according to the zoning ordinance, of 56 cars. So where will they park in Waverly Hills?
Well, I think this is where we get back to the residents that we're serving, right? So as we touched on earlier, we've got 52 apartment units that are less likely to own vehicles. 24 of those units are we strive to have those as supportive housing. And as such, those folks are also less likely to have have vehicles. So what I'd like you to look at is not 249 units. We have roughly 198 that are more likely to have vehicles. We have 218 parking spaces. So if you look at it from that perspective and you look at who we're serving, this is not a market rate building. These folks are not driving into wherever. These are folks who tend to work within, I think our population is usually within 10 minutes from around the property. This is who we're serving. And so from that perspective,
But these are family units, and some of them now, family units at Leckey Gardens have 2 vehicles right now. Because some of them have landscape vehicles, some have family vehicles.
So when we spoke to the point earlier in reference to the construction vehicles, as you noted, they're around the property. What I'd like to do from this point is check with our property management and see, do those vehicles belong to our residents? They may not, but I can try to check that out with property management and confirm, because they may not be Leckey Gardens residents.
But even if they're not, they're taking up those spaces on the street.
But those are public.
There are no spaces.
So I'm going to interject here because it's 8:38 and Mr. Benson has been waiting very patiently. So I appreciate that patience. So I think that we've kind of sussed out some questions and certainly some viewpoints. So I'm going to give you the floor and then we will move on. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks, no problem.
Yeah.
So just maybe in the nature of a heads up, and it's related to what you were just talking about. We're not talking about trees tonight, but I'm going to give you a heads up. Next meeting, I will be talking about the trees, and one of our imperatives is we need to have as many shade trees as possible, as many street trees as possible. Every single spot around this massive building needs to have street trees, not the little tiny trees along 21st, but big shady trees with enough room to grow. So my commission always talks about having a wide enough space for those trees to flourish. And I think that when push comes to shove, it starts to bump up against bike lanes and parking spaces and sidewalk widths. So my heads up is I'm going to be maybe coming back next meeting and saying maybe you need to get rid of some of the parking spaces on the roads in order for these trees to survive and end up looking good. So I think that parking along the street is an issue that we ought to give some thought to. Maybe reduce those numbers.
All right, it's 8:39. So this is the last call for anybody who has not signed up for public comment, who would like to make one, because we're about to head into that phase.
It
So
looks like now someone just raised their hand, Thomas Gregg,
is he
but
on
then
the-
they lowered their hand. Oh, they might be signing up for public comment.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is what we're gonna do. It's 8:40. Sorry, I keep doing time check, but I want to be respectful of people's time. I think we did a good job of covering the parking and loading issues. Everybody had an opportunity to ask questions and raise concerns if they have them. So how many do we have on the list right now?
We have 9.
Okay, so we're gonna do 2 minutes for public comment, and then if there are any stragglers, we can try to accommodate them. So we will go to public comment. I will just say before we kind of do that, again, thank you everybody for coming tonight. We'll do public comment. We'll wrap up at the end. Another plug, walking tour tomorrow, noon at the site. If you're able to join, would love to have you. So Emma, do we want to start with the first speaker? So 2 minutes for public comments. So our first speaker is Mr. Ralph Johnson. We in person? Yep. Hi, Mr. Johnson.
I'm really amazed by this process, blown away. Talking about water features and stuff. This is a massive building that's gonna overwhelm the neighborhood. 6 times the number of people, 6 times the number of cars. And it's being forced upon a people who support affordable housing. In fact, they have always been good neighbors with Leckey. And they've always wanted 7 stories. And at the last minute, the staff imposed 10 stories. This is too much for this area. The replacement apartment building has 209 more units than the 40 that are now there. And the Leckey building had 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, but this is 1, 2, 3, and 4 huge units. And they only proposed 222 parking spaces for 249 units. The consultants in the thing that I read here said that 24% of all travel by the tenants will not be used in their personal cars. Well, how are they going to go around? This makes no sense to me at all. I own the apartment building up the street from it. It's a 40-unit apartment building, and I have 40 units parked there. Every trip my tenants go on, they use their automobile. But True Ground proposes this because they know the fiction. I know of 2 properties they have that they're way underparked. And if you dig a hole under this building for a parking hole, you can only dig it once. And if you screw up, as this will, if you impose this upon this neighborhood, you will have a 100-year mistake. And this community gladly supported double the units that Leckey wanted to have, and probably even more. But they wanted something that could be architecturally pleasing, and that's with a 7-story stick building. This monstrosity that you have here is a blot on the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr.
And it will
Johnson.
destroy the neighborhood.
That's 2 minutes.
Thank
We're going to go to Jean Henscroft online, followed by Elizabeth Slanta.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm gonna applaud the gentleman in front of me and Sandy's comments about the parking and the height levels. I think 11 stories would be too high in this neighborhood. And I'm very concerned about the traffic and the pedestrian traffic in this neighborhood. The increased vehicular traffic. You know, there are 2 schools, Dorothy Ham and then Glebe Elementary. So there are a lot of school kids that would be part of that pedestrian traffic. That's really relates to the height and then a number of units that would, increase the increased number of units and parking. I'm really concerned about the limited number of parking spaces allocated in the garage. So those are my comments for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jean. We'll go to Elizabeth Slanta.
Yes, hi,
Hi.
I'm Elizabeth Slanta. I've been a lifelong resident of Northern Virginia, and I was born in Arlington Hospital, and we moved to our single-family residence in 2012. And our house is on the corner of Woodrow and 20th, and our driveway faces Leckey. Today, Leckey Gardens provides 20 units and 20 parking spaces on Woodrow Street, a 1-to-1 ratio. The resident vehicles are already filling the streets. True Ground submitted a site plan to construct 10 stories and with only 222 parking spaces, leaving 39 underparked, a 6-fold increase in parking density. This lack of sufficient parking is of severe concern. Leckey Gardens residents perhaps have 2 vehicles, either a work pickup, as you saw, and a utility van, plus an early model family car. I see this every day. The roads will be clogged and no one will have sufficient street parking if this density is allowed. The apartments are planned as family units. They're not going to be senior living. It'll be impossible to correct the underparking deficiency after the project is built. Please ensure this building does not create undue strain on our neighborhood. In addition, but this borders Woodstock, a direct thoroughfare to east-west, and is a protected bike line for Langston and Glebe. The parking garage egress on Woodrow will create a dangerous situation. The street is narrow with parking on both sides. The area is dangerous also for our children walking and biking to Dorothyham and Woodstock Park. Numerous strollers, dog walkers, bikers traverse the streets. The area needs a Vision Zero study also. We also want the county
Thanks, Ms. Slanta.
ARC 55
Thank you. That's
and
2 minutes.
resurrect the eliminated Metro Bus 3 line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Jim Todd in the room.
Hi, Jim Todd. I am someone that is always biking. I know this area very well. I just want to, for context, for the commission to understand that although there are some bike lanes on Woodrow Street itself, they don't connect to anything except one other street. It's a patchwork. And so to consider this area basically safe for cycling, I think is kind of a myth, and I think it's very dangerous. Especially to imagine children. Children can't even bike to Glebe Elementary School because although the street comes out in Glebe, you can't get safely to Glebe Elementary School on a bicycle. So you can't bike there, and you can bike to Dorothyham if you proceed down Workham Lane, but there's no bike lane on Langston, there's no bike lane on Cherry Hill Road, there's no bike lane on Glebe. There is a bike lane for 2 blocks on Old Dominion, but again, it's not connected to this bike lane. So I just want the commission to understand that because of Arlington's crazy patchwork system of stop-start bike lanes, disappear and appear block by block, this is not a safe area for cycling. And to the extent that the commission is counting on cycling as being a viable form of transportation for the residents, it's not a safe form of transportation for the residents. And this is spoken by someone, I spend 2-3 hours a day on a bicycle. And I consider myself an expert at navigating traffic, but I don't think you should expect especially children, to be able to navigate the traffic through this neighborhood. So I just wanted to consider that. And also this is a larger call to county staff to do something to actually make a complete and connected system of bike lanes in the county. Thank you and good luck. Also, I love the design in general. I know most people don't, but I think the improvements are really great.
You had 15 seconds, so you're all good.
Okay.
Have to be a stickler. All right, Jennifer Thorpe.
Okay, so do I get his 15 seconds?
No, but you can go ahead.
All right. I apologize for reading, but I don't want to forget to say anything. So I'm here in support of those from the Waverly Hills Civic Association, and especially to speak as a resident of North Woodrow Street, which, as all of you know, runs along one side of Leckey Gardens. I'd like to bring up the issue of increased traffic that the project will bring. I'll start off by saying that I have no issue with Leckey Gardens itself, and I have and continue to welcome a diversity of housing types and incomes in my community. I purchased my home in Waverly Hills in 1992, 33 years ago, and have occupied it for that entire time. When I purchased it, it was with the knowledge that the street behind my home, North Woodstock, was a wider, busier street, often and unfortunately used as a cut through from Glebe to Old Dominion / Lee, now Cherry Hill / Langston. Those purchasing on North Woodstock also have been and are aware of Woodstock being wider and busier than Woodrow. I expect that Woodstock street was built wide with the expectation it would hold more traffic at the time it was built and in the future. And this evening, I believe it was called a primary street. And I don't know the definition of primary, but it seems like it may cover what I just said. I was extremely concerned about any ingress egress at the time the original plan was presented to the Waverly Hills Civic Association. I'm even more concerned now that it's been that the ingress egress has been consolidated to Woodrow. Sorry. Since I moved to Waverly Hills, traffic has increased on my street, both in volume and speed. Years ago, speed bumps were installed to address the former, and they seemed, at least initially, to divert the traffic to other streets as drivers wanted to avoid them. Tonight, I learned that True Ground / the project has reduced its number of parking spaces by a negligible amount, 4 spaces, from 222 to 218. Will this mean 218 cars from residents and those who work there will drive right up towards Cherry Hill Road or left out of the garage to Glebe? If we have that amount to 109, that means 109 more cars a day will drive past my home on my narrow, quiet street if people are going out or going to work. And another 109 would pass on the street when the residents return home. That's 218 vehicle passes a day.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, but I need to move on to the next.
Okay, I just want to say one other thing, which is think about if that was your street. Would you want even 50 more cars going one way and 50 another in one day? Just
Thank you. Thank you. David Warren online.
Hi, I share the concerns raised about parking and traffic. And on the parking, if I understood the presentation correctly, the ratio that you're proposing now is below it said something like below requirement, or in the initial presentation. So I was wondering about that. My other big concern is the facade facing Woodstock. It looks as if the north and west, so the 21st Street and Woodrow facades have a sidewalk and then a little bit of space, green space or something before the building. Whereas Woodstock, which is used by residents regularly to, walk their kids, walk dogs, it's just going to be, it looks like a pretty narrow sidewalk right up against the wall and the windows facing the parking lot. So I'm really worried about that facade. This is facing the park. It's, it goes from like a residential green park area. And right now there's a fair amount of green on Woodstock in front of Leckey Gardens. That's going to disappear, it seems, from the drawing. So I hope you can do better with the Woodstock facade. I'll give the rest of my time to somebody else. Over.
Thank you. Next is Bernie Byrne. Mr. Byrne, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, although it looks like you did unmute. So we still can't hear you if you're speaking. So I'm going to go to the next speaker, but you might want to try calling in, and we'll get you if you call in by phone. We're going to go to Kathleen Freeman.
Hi, yes. I am a Waverly Hills resident and live on Woodrow. And one of the things I noticed in your presentation today, which I really appreciate seeing all the elevation changes and all the, the inner courtyard and the green spaces that have been taken into consideration. In one of the elevations, you compared the residents on Woodrow and Woodstock to the proposed, 4 or 5, the changes in elevation on the building. And the residents on Woodrow were 1 to 3 stories. And living on Woodrow, we are all 1 story. So if in your measurements, when you're, having to adjust for the height of the residents that are existing, it really should just be 1 story. You shouldn't have 3 be in that measurement because we are all 1 story. We may have a basement, but we are all 1 story, built in the 50s. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that that measurement may have started in the wrong spot by saying it was a 3-story building because we are all 1 story. So I just wanted to share that and bring that to your attention. And I appreciate everyone's comments on traffic and pedestrians because I have kids that go to both of those schools. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thomas Reich.
Reich.
Right.
Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Tom Reich. I've been a homeowner resident Waverly Hills for 25 years. I'm also on the Waverly Hills board. The board is united in opposing this gargantuan building because of all the effects it will have. Sandy and Ralph, I think, have done an excellent job at outlining frankly, the dangers to the community that this access project poses. I wish I could say tonight I'd heard something that causes me to change my mind, but I'm afraid I haven't. I have a specific issue to raise. It's environmental standards for this building. I believe the current building, no matter what size it winds up being, it does not provide solar or renewable energy. It doesn't have a green or reflective roof. And I believe the goal for the building is to be developed to the LEED Silver standard, not the higher gold standard. I think the county is commendably encouraged, maybe even required, large buildings to be built to the gold standard. And I'm just curious why that's not the plan here. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Hogan, who's here in person.
Good evening. My name is Alice Hogan, and I work with NAVAHA, which is the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. I'm also a lifelong Arlingtonian, and I'm very excited for this building. I think the discussions about height are difficult, and people will not come to an agreement. However, the Langston Boulevard area plan already exists. So that conversation was had over the last 10 and 12 years, and I don't think it's helpful to revisit that when the building that's proposed is less than what actually could be there anyway. I think it's okay to work within that envelope and then from there get as many of the community benefits that we as a full community would like. The plan wants 2,500, affordable units on this corridor. We have to get busy. We can't build 100-unit buildings and expect to get to 2,500. It's not going to happen. So that we have to kind of step out of what we're used to and do something a little bit different and think forward, into the future for Arlington. I think the idea of more biophilia is a really good one because especially for the name, it is a large building. It will be a big change. So the greener, the better, I think, on that pedestrian level will help people feel more comfortable. I think it's important to bring, if True Ground can bring a little bit more about parking ratios at your other buildings, ones that are close to Metro, ones that are not, so people can get a good sense of what that looks like. And I think it's on the county's responsibility to respond to and provide transit and other things, in the community. It's not on the developer or on the civic association. So what can we do to get that Ramada bus back? Things like that. We can't not build because there's not a bus. We need to get a bus, and I feel like we're meeting the, affordable housing and Langston Boulevard goals in a lot of ways. And so I'm grateful you're doing all that. And I look forward to, a refined final.
Thank you, Alice. Mr. Bernie Byrne, are you online? By phone?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm on the phone. This building is much too large. It occupies too much ground space. Further, the building needs retail on its ground floor, not residential units. The private open space area, which is in the middle of the building, should not be within the building. It should not be private. The open space should be externalized, contain many native plants that support native pollinators, and be made available for public use. As it looks now, there's very little landscape plants in there, just some pots and pavement. The greenway must be constructed at the same time as the building is. The project lacks significant biophilia and sustainability. To establish biophilia, native flowering vines should climb from the ground on trellises on all sides to create green walls between windows. This is especially true important at ground level. Native flowering vines should hang from the roof ledges and balconies. The building also needs a green roof, which it doesn't have at all. The planting sheet contains, the planting plan in sheet L601 contains many plants that are not native to North America or to Arlington. Many plants are cultivars. None of the cultivars, not natives. None of these provides food and habitat for native pollinators. The plant, as we'll discuss in more depth at the next meeting, the planting plan contains butterfly milkweed, but does not contain common milkweed. This is not satisfactory. Reproducing monarchs lay few eggs on A. tuberosa, but lay many eggs on common milkweed. The project will only be LEED silver. Although the project will create affordable housing units, that is no excuse for not being LEED gold or LEED platinum. This is really minimal. I mean, we really don't see very many LEED silver projects anymore. We used to, we don't. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Okay, so that concludes public comment. So just a reminder, walk-in tour tomorrow, again, noon at the site. Meeting 2 will be in just, I think, 3 short weeks, right after Thanksgiving. We will be doing project updates. We'll talk about transportation, specifically streetscapes, environmental impacts, open space and landscaping, and sustainability, and final remarks. That will be our second and likely final SPRC for this project. So 9:01, sorry, just by a minute. But we're getting out mostly on time. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a few weeks.
I dare you to bike there or take public transportation there.
Well done.
And see it all.
Yeah.
What's that?